on an ongoing basis a socio-economic impact assessment, firstly ahead of the finalization of the National Minimum Wage Bill. The introduction of this minimum wage for people who are going or experiencing income inequality is quite historic. One of the social partners, who is the community representatives, characterized this as a revolutionary development which sets the stage for a far more concerted national effort to defeat poverty. And this came from one of the leaders from the NGO sector who have been involved with us. But clearly they want to get us now on the journey of beginning the process of negotiating social security, a comprehensive social security process. Not only will this wage significantly improve the income of nearly 50% of our working people, but it establishes a foundation for progress towards the realization of a living wage for all. And now a living wage for all clearly is going to be the purview of our trade unions. They will continue the struggle for a living wage, but what we have done through introducing a national minimum wage, we have set a floor below which no South African should ever be paid. And we're hoping that when it is introduced, it will have an impact on income inequality, and it will be able to lift a lot of our people out of income poverty and set us on the right path to have a living wage in the end. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
The Honorable Loliwe.
Thank you, Deputy President, for the clear response. The Department of Labour's budget for employment of inspectors is minimal. What measures are going to be put in place to complement the department in monitoring implementation of the national minimum wage? Thank you.
The Honorable the Deputy President.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The reason we agreed with the social partners that implementation must only be next year was to give the Department of Labour sufficient time to prepare for the implementation of the minimum wage. This is so because we would like to see full compliance. And this period is going to ensure that we reach out to employers and get as many businesses as possible to be aware of how the minimum wage is going to function and to raise their level of compliance. At the same time, the Department of Labour itself is setting up a fairly rigorous and robust process within the department to be able to monitor this. Now, the budgetary impact of it all will be outlined, I'm sure, by the Minister in the coming year when she outlines her departmental budget. We believe that we will be able to set up processes and a fairly robust inspectorate and make sure that there is compliance throughout the economy. Because in the end, the national minimum wage will only really be effective if there is maximum compliance. And we're talking to businesses to make sure that it should not be so much a matter of being policed. It should be a matter of them participating in all this on a voluntary basis, not a voluntary basis, on a compliance-driven basis. Now, the pleasing thing is that they participated fairly actively with us in the negotiation to this. We had the various business organizations, and I'm sure that they will from now on be talking to their members to make sure that indeed they do comply with this minimum wage. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Mbata.
Honorable Speaker, I will give the question to the Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Speaker. So the question that was posed to the Deputy President of the ANC was that in the minimum wage is going to reduce income poverty. But will agree with me, Deputy President, that the biggest form of poverty that characterizes majority of South Africans, the black majority in particular, is the poverty of landlessness. Yesterday, the ANC voted against expropriation without compensation. They voted against your president's suggestion that there must be expropriation of land without compensation. Now, as part of that presidency of the ANC, you say that there must be expropriation without compensation. Parliament says that it must not happen. What is your view in terms of the expropriation of land without compensation? Should we pursue that as an agenda, as a means to dealing decisively with the landlessness and the poverty of our people as is being dealt with? I'm asking you this question now because it's urgent.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Don't
you are only
motivate
going
the
to
question.
come back after 3 months.
Your
Thank you
1
very
minute
much.
is over. Honorable Deputy President.
There are a number of factors that drive poverty in our country, and one of them is unemployment, and indeed one of them is asset poverty. Asset poverty that also involves the lack of property ownership or land ownership and assets, other assets as well. Now, when it comes to the issue of expropriation without compensation, the matter was actively canvassed in this House yesterday. And I'm not going to bore this House by going through the debate that was entertained here yesterday. And I think the matter was well canvassed, as was mostly robustly debated. And much as I was not here, because I couldn't be here, I looked at the TV reports and I saw how the EFF argued the case and how a number of other parties argued the case. What should be said is that indeed, the issue of land is still very central in the minds of many of our people. There is land hunger in our country, and from the ANC point of view, this is a matter that is being addressed robustly. The various programs that we've got in place are addressing this matter, including policies that we have been implementing ever since 1994. And we are a political party that subscribes to the rule of law. Right now, we have a constitution that prescribes that land should be dealt with in a particular way. The African National Congress is pursuing to implement what is set out in our constitution because we subscribe to the rule of law. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Deputy President, what is very clear is that the 3,500 Rand minimum wage that we're introducing will certainly not be enough to address the inequality in our society today. Now, Mr. Deputy President, for hundreds of years, some of our employees have been earning minimum wage, including farm workers who have been exploited. Now, this being the first step in the direction of trying to address inequality, would you also consider at some stage very soon to also introduce beneficiation, especially for farm workers and things, so that they enjoy housing, they enjoy pension funds, they enjoy medical aid by these employers who have exploited them for such a very long period of time? Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
I agree that the 3,500 is a type of wage that is not going to wipe out poverty in our country. And in fact, in arriving at this figure, we had to have a very good balance. The issue that faced us and that faced the panel that advised us was whether to peg it so high, maybe 8,000, 12,000, and they knew, and we also knew that if we pegged it high, many people would lose jobs. But at the same time, we knew that if we pegged it far lower than the 20 Rand an hour, it would not have an impact. So the 20 Rand an hour was the balance that could be achieved and found at this point in time. And I repeat, 3,500 or 20 Rand an hour is not a living wage, but everyone has recognized it as a very good start towards addressing the issue of income inequality in our country. And admittedly, a number of people, as I said, in our country are earning way below that right now. You will not believe that our research told us that even workers who are involved in logistics in the urban area are earning as little as 6 Rand an hour. So there are still many people whose income right now is still way, way below where this 20 Rand an hour is. So the 20 Rand an hour is beginning to resonate with a number of people. Even those people who dismissed it are beginning to see that it is a start and it builds a foundation upon which we can finally end up with a highly paid working population in our country. Coming to the issue of beneficiation, particularly for farm workers, as you call it, and clearly we want to get to the point where farm workers earn a decent wage, and in fact they should earn a living wage. They should be able to have medical aid, they should be able to have all the benefits that working people in other sectors enjoy. Now, coming to farm workers, you will of course be aware of some of the programs and pilot programs that the Minister Gugile Nkwinti has embarked upon, where he is now converting, he's reached agreement with a number of farmers to convert workers just from being mere farm workers to being partners in a number of farming operations. When it started, a number of people opposed this. More and more farmers are now embracing this, and this is spreading, and it will soon spread like a wildfire. What it will end up with is that we will have workers who work on the farms being treated with dignity, who, even if they have lost their jobs, will not be railroaded out of the farms where it still currently happens, where they will be paid decent wages and where their conditions of employment will be a lot better than what they are now. And with the national minimum wage, Honourable Member, we are on a roll. We are on a roll to improving the conditions of employment as well as income of many workers in the South African economy. And we need to embrace this and make sure that it happens and it is fully implemented. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Ollis.
Thank you, Speaker. Deputy President, we're all concerned when we see the plight of poor people sitting on the side of the road, people who are struggling. But twice during the December question session here in the House, you stated that there will be job losses as a result of the imposition of the national minimum wage, and you undertook to engage with NEDLAC on practical measures to limit those job losses, other than the farming sector and the domestic work sector, which we already know about. Subsequently, NEDLAC has accepted the national minimum wage proposals, and this leads me to ask you, could you tell us what practical measures you have agreed at NEDLAC to limit or significantly reduce the job losses when the national minimum wage is implemented?
The Honourable Deputy President.
The panel that advised the social partners, the Committee of Principals, has been engaged to look more closely at this matter. Initially, they did say to us, yes, there may well be job losses, but the information at hand is not definitive. And they looked at a number of international studies as well. The World Bank and a number of others did say, yes, sometimes the issue of job losses is exaggerated, and sometimes it does not eventuate as it has been supposed. And we've asked them to look at this matter very closely and come back to us and tell us what the eventualities could well be. Now, in our discussions, we've also looked at a number of proposals on what can be done to mitigate against job losses. One of those, of course, is exactly what I said earlier, is that businesses can come forward and apply for an exemption. If a business is not able to pay the minimum wage, there is going to be an allowance, not rather an allowance for them to come forward and say, we are not able to pay this, and they will be granted an exemption, but they will have to outline precisely what their difficulties are. So that is the first one. And we are also going to look at vulnerable sectors of the economy where incentives could well be paid as well. We're also going to look at whether there can be tax breaks for some of those type of employers. And we are also going to look at a number of other measures and interventions. And let me just assure members that we are not flying into this blind. We are not flying into this blind. We are taking fairly calculated positions to make sure that we do mitigate against job losses. And here is the real issue. The real issue that faced us was whether we continue to countenance income inequality or we do something that is quite revolutionary. We opted for a revolutionary stance, but at the same time we said, to the extent that there will be job losses, we are going to put in place a number of measures. One of those important ones being getting an exemption that will last for a year, and if after a year your business still cannot afford it, you are allowed and entitled to come back and say, this is how my business is operating. So vulnerable businesses, businesses that are in difficulties, are going to be able to come forward. What we want to prevent in the end is mass job losses. And with this agreement amongst the parties, we are certain that we are going to be able to mitigate against massive job losses. Thank you very much.